How should you vote in this election? Let's get started. Spread the fire, fam. Welcome back to SMWX. If you're new around here, my name is Dr. Sizwe Mpofu-Walsh, and on this channel, we explore South African politics through interviews and analysis. Now, we have a big election coming up on the 1st of November this year, and a lot of you have said you want to hear more of my own analysis, not just interviews with other people or breaking down facts and explaining things, but what I think of certain questions. And of course, there's no bigger question that confronts us as we build up to the 1st of November than how should you vote? Now, in this video, I want to take you through the process that I'm going to be going through as I vote. What I'm not going to be doing is dictating a party for you to vote for, but what I am going to be doing is saying who I think you should not vote for and explaining why I think that is the appropriate course of action in this particular election at this particular time, and then also taking you through a series of options that are before you as you try to make up your mind about the party that you think, or the person or the candidate that you think deserves your vote. So let's begin with who I think you should not vote for. And I'm prepared to say, without any fear of contradiction, that you should not vote for the ANC. And the reasons for this are simple. The ANC in this election is effectively promising you things in the future without explaining why it has failed to deliver those things in the past. And the time, I'm afraid, 27 years into the ANC's tenure, for promising goodies that never materialize in the future has long since passed. And so on a matter of principle, I think that South Africans should exercise tough love towards the ANC in this election. And here's the thing, unfortunately, losing power is the only language the ANC understands. They think that South Africans are really happy with the situation. They think they couldn't have done much more. They think South Africa's pretty much in a decent place. They can't see reality because of their incumbency and because they have so much power. And there's only one way to change that. It's that the voters have to reduce the amount of power that the ANC has. And you know what? Who knows? Maybe in some distant universe, that will actually provoke the ANC to really introspect and really self-correct when it's on the sidelines of power. When it realizes, wow, we messed up so badly that we actually lost the confidence of the South African people. But this idea that the ANC is going to come to its senses while it has all this power is an exercise in magical thinking. And I know it's difficult for people to abandon the ANC or feel like they're going against some kind of liberation mission. But at the end of the day, I would argue that the ANC has long since abandoned its liberatory politics. And also, I think we need to remember that in a democracy, you are allowed to change your mind. That voting for one party at one time doesn't mean you have to vote for them for time immemorial. And at this particular moment, it just seems to me that the ANC should have less power and not more power. We've tried this thing of giving it more power. In fact, in 2019, people said, no, give President Ramaphosa more power because that will help him to change the economy and governance and deal with corruption. How did that work? Corruption is on the rampage. The economy is on its knees. The government is pretty much the same as it's ever been, if not worse. Giving parties that are failing more power is a recipe for disaster, and expecting the ANC to change while continuing to give it power is I'm afraid, to me, the definition of political madness. We're expecting different results by giving the same people and the same party power to change. And the crisis of governance across South Africa's municipalities is there for all to see. Close your eyes to the campaign slogans. Turn off your ears when the political rhetoric starts flowing, and look around. Look at the state of basic services, water, electricity, basic sanitation. Look at the state of municipal finances. We know that 2/3 of municipalities are in effect ailing, to put it mildly. And we know that just as the ANC is talking about defeating corruption, new corruption scandals are emerging. And we also know that the party has a major internal battle, which it's papering over in this election in order to gain power. So I'm convinced, again in this election, that it would be a mistake to vote for the ANC. I'm sure the ANC will get the most votes in this election. It's still the biggest party in South Africa. But slowly but surely, I think the ANC needs to lose power and come to a point where it's not the ANC that's the ultimate decision maker in South African politics anymore, but it's the South African people. And in order to get to that place, we need to bring the ANC to a point where it can lose power, or it has lost power, and in that way wake up to the failures over which it has presided. So having said that, we are then faced with a number of alternatives. So these are the alternatives if you agree that voting for the ANC is wrong-headed. You either vote for one of the opposition parties. Now, here I accept as well that the options are not perfect. But as the economist John Maynard Keynes once said, if you can't find a political home by the law of attraction, then you must find one by the law of repulsion. So if we agree that the status quo is broken, then one of your options is just to vote against the status quo for the least worst option within the opposition parties. And I believe that that's a superior option to voting for the status quo. But cool, so some of you will have opposition parties that you want to vote for, and I think that that's a fine decision. However, let's say that none of the obvious political parties appeal to you. Then you actually need to do some research, because I dispute this idea that there are no options and no alternatives. I think a lot of people who say that actually haven't surveyed the options and the alternatives. In your ward, in your municipality, wherever you are, you can also check if there are independent candidates running. So these independent candidates aren't necessarily contesting every single part in the country, but there may be an independent candidate where you are that is actually a superior choice to any of the dominant political parties. There may also be a regional party which isn't a national party which you haven't heard about, or even a local party which isn't a national or a regional party which you haven't heard about, that's catering specifically to your area's interests. So in that case, your alternatives actually widen. So you have the option of voting for whatever opposition party you think is best placed, or you can vote for the specific local, independent, or regional party which is in touch with the local politics of your area. And although the opposition parties are not the perfect selection of choices, the merit of voting against the status quo is that you are also reducing the ANC's power, and you are thereby making the politics of your local area more competitive, so that no one party, set of interests, or set of persons can fully control the politics of your area, but rather they will have to contend with voters threatening to evict them from power if they get things wrong. And that's the key thing that we need to get to. because that's, I think, when we'll start to see our democracy working, when elected leaders no longer just rely on their parties, but have to rely on the support of the people in order to stay in power. We need to make people more powerful than parties. I've been recording a lot of videos today, so if you hear my voice flagging, then that's the situation. But we move. So those are the options. There are also a set of protest options, which I think we do need to speak about as well. Because I think the last option really is staying at home. I think that achieves very little and also doesn't even exercise a protest. It's kind of just a lazy option in my view. One of the protest options, if you really have looked at every alternative, you've looked at the status quo, you've looked at the opposition parties, you've looked at all the independent candidates, and you still think there is no one you want to vote for, then, by the way, I think it's incumbent on you to start building the kind of alternative you want to see and working towards that in the future. But in the short term, you can also spoil your ballot. And that is a legitimate form of democratic protest. You participate in the democratic protest process, but you do not select any option. So your ballot is counted, but it doesn't weigh in favor of any particular political party. And that is also a way of contesting the current status quo. So those are just a number of options that are before you as a voter, and that's my honest opinion on how I think you should be voting in this election. Ultimately, I think the time has come for us to reject the status quo, to send a message to the ANC that decades of failure and the betrayal of its liberatory promise needs to be heard loud and clear, and a message needs to be sent. And the only way that message can be sent is through the bitter medicine of removing power from the ANC's hands. And in that way, hopefully, we can regenerate the political space in the short term while we set our sights on remaking it in the long term. Thanks for watching. Comment if you agree or disagree down below, like, share, subscribe, and keep tuned to SMWX in the build-up to and after this election, as I'll be doing a number of analysis videos. Spread the fire, spread this video far and wide. Aye.